Kentucky Speedway became a staple of the NASCAR calendar at the dawn of the 2000s, where it would host Truck and Xfinity Series races for 2 decades. Up until 2010, the track was exclusive to the lower series, much like Iowa Speedway in more recent years. However, it was announced in late 2010 that the Cup Series stars would roll into Sparta, Kentucky in 2011 to put on a show that would be bigger than the Daytona 500. The track's first race would be a logistical disaster and doomed the track that had great potential. I mean, a racetrack in Kentucky, how did it fail? This story sticks out to me because the 2011 Quaker State 400 was the first NASCAR race I ever went to as a kid. Throughout the video, I'm going to throw in some of my experiences and stories from the weekend, so hopefully it adds a little bit to the drama. Not a single NASCAR race has been hosted at the track since 2020. This is the horrible failure of Kentucky Speedway. To start off, Kentucky Speedway was actually a success in the Truck and Xfinity Series. The total capacity for the Speedway before 2011 was 66,000, and there was consistently 40 to 50,000 fans each race. For standalone Truck and Xfinity races, that is really good. With numbers like these, a Cup race at the track would most likely be one of the most attended races on the schedule. Bruton Smith had promised Kentucky fans that he would bring a Cup race to the Bluegrass State, and he delivered on that promise. In 2010, it was announced that the first annual Quaker State 400 would take place in 2011. Further, it was announced that an additional 50,000 seats would be constructed on top of the existing 66,000 seats. And sure enough, the race would be sold out. It was actually a pretty long road to get to this point. In 1999, before the track even hosted its first NASCAR race, the owners petitioned for a Cup date. Champion and Kentucky native Darrell Waltrip had lobbied NASCAR officials for almost a decade to get a Cup date at the track, and he may have been more excited than anyone about it. Waltrip stated, "It's like giving birth to a child. We nurtured this thing. We thought we had a date, we thought we had a deal. People kind of played with us, almost toyed with us. The previous owners got annoyed, they got upset, they got mad, filed a lawsuit, and that's when I kind of backed away from it. That's not me. I don't go that route." Bruton came along and bought the track, and 2 years later, it had a Cup date. We're not going to go down this rabbit hole, but that sums up a little bit of the journey to get the desired Cup date. Anyways, the race. Let's just get to it. There were a couple of concerns heading into the weekend. First of all, safety. The inside wall of turns 1 and 2 was a little too close to the racing surface, and there needed to be more safer barriers around the track. Some drivers voiced their concerns, but Bruton Smith jokingly stated, "Just drive where Kyle Busch goes. If they do that, they'll be fine because Kyle has it all figured out." Jimmy Johnson responded on Twitter with, "I'm a Bruton fan, but it pisses me off to hear a comment like that on driver safety. My job title is a race car driver, not stuntman. Think of who would be alive today if driver safety was where it should have been years ago." Also, the infrastructure was not up to standards at all. Although the track had hosted races before, there was just not enough parking for all of the cars. I mean, they added 50,000 seats, but barely added any more parking. Very few concession stands and permanent bathrooms were added, so the organizers relied on a limited number of temporary food trucks and porta-johns to do the trick. Although not widely known beforehand, the interstate beside the track was a disaster and not well taken care of. This was a major problem because it was the main way that most fans got to the racetrack. All of these concerns would be very evident on the day of the race. Traffic backups began on Interstate 71 before noon on race day. This might be normal for a 3 o'clock start time, but the race didn't start until 7:30. So 8 hours before the race, there were already traffic jams. By 3:30, I-71 was backed up for more than 15 miles to the north of the speedway. At 6 p.m., the Kentucky State Police reported backups of more than 20 miles in both directions on I-71 and backups of 10 miles on side roads. Luckily, I was at the track when the gates opened super early in the morning, so I didn't have too much of a problem getting there. By 7 o'clock, just 30 minutes before the start of the race, there were an estimated 30,000 fans stuck in traffic. Keep in mind, the track had a capacity of just over 100,000, so around a quarter of the estimated crowd was still in traffic. It is reported at around 8:30, an hour into the race, fans started to abandon their cars on the interstate and walk just to catch a glimpse of the action on track. At 10 p.m., halfway through the race, traffic was still backed up for miles. Even when fans got to the track at this point, they were turned away as there was no more parking. At this point, parked cars along the side of the road stretched miles. So that was horrible. Denny Hamlin was among the people stuck in traffic and updated fans on Twitter of his situation, but luckily made it in time for the race. It was estimated that 15,000 to 20,000 fans did not even get inside of the track. Among those fans was Kentucky State President David L. Williams, who left the state capital of Frankfort just 45 miles away at 2 p.m. This man left 5.5 hours before the race started and did not get into the race at all. From personal experience, my dad had a friend who lived just 20 miles away from the track, so they left a little bit later in the afternoon, but never even made it to the track. These headlines you are seeing just go to show how bad of a nightmare this really was. After the race, it was just as bad. I remember the parking lot being a standstill and taking a nap and waking up at 3 in the morning still in the parking lot. A short 2-hour drive home turned into nearly 8 hours. We even tried stopping at hotels around the area because we were all so tired, but they were all completely booked. A lot of people just had the same idea we did. Also, just to speak to the fact that the facilities were not up to standards, another story comes to mind. I was like 9 years old at the time and really couldn't hold my bladder. So I was out in the parking lot and had to use the bathroom and literally could not find one. Finally, we found a porta-john outside of the track, but there was only one, and there had to be like 50 or 60 people in line. I just couldn't wait, so I went back to my car and peed in a bottle. I mean, that's pretty bad. Bruton Smith, who was an amazing person in the sport for his entire duration, did not necessarily handle the situation the best. He consistently downplayed the situation following the weekend. I mean, I get it, this race was near and dear to him, it was like his baby, and he didn't want to tarnish the reputation of the race. Like, for example, even months later, in January of 2012, he stated, "We had a little traffic problem." Now, I get that he probably meant it in a joking manner, like suggesting that it wasn't little at all, but it's still not the best look. In response to the situation, he offered tickets to fans that didn't make it to the race to any of the remaining SMI races that year or the 2012 Cup race. However, this black eye did not really settle the score to some fans. I mean, they waited so long in traffic, took time out of their weekend, got excited about the event, took time off work, just to be turned away. Now they would have to do that all over again. The track worked with the state government to improve the roads to the track, improve facilities, and buy more land for parking for upcoming races. The attendance for the following race in 2012 was still over 100,000, which was pretty surprising to me. However, another issue that the track was not ready for came up that year. Heat. Now, this is obviously out of the track's control, but lines for the concession stands grew as people needed more and more water, and it resulted in really long lines. Some people even reported shortages of water in some places. Once again, I was there for that race as well, and the heat was just brutal. Just walking around that weekend, there were like these wet towels that everybody had around their necks, and it was crazy because literally everybody had them. This event and a rain postponed race in 2013 was the nail in the coffin for Kentucky in my opinion. I and many others did not return to the track after that point. It was a combination of the track not being prepared, organizers being reactive other than proactive, and some bad luck with the weather that inevitably killed this track. Attendance visibly declined over the following years until NASCAR announced that the track would not be on the calendar for the 2021 season. Attendance was cited as the main reason the track was left off the calendar. The track was just not bringing in enough money. Outside of an amazing finish between the Busch brothers, Cole Custer's crazy move to win his first race, and a couple battles here and there, the product wasn't that exciting to watch either. The track is now mainly used as a major storage facility for Ford. There are some events at the track, and you can do the NASCAR racing experience there, but that's it. These are usually the signs that they're going to demolish the track and eventually turn it into a shopping mall, or something of that nature. NASCAR fans are typically understanding of track issues, especially for a new track, but after back-to-back-to-back issues at a racetrack, they tend to never come back and just go to the proven tracks that have hosted races for years. This track does hold somewhat of a special place in my heart because it was the first race I ever went to, but at the same time, it kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth because all 3 Cup events I went to were the 3 worst experiences I ever had at a racetrack. Anyways guys, that's it for this video. I hope you did enjoy, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.